Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space. And a couple of cards that are coffee themed, monochromatic, so I only use like one color family, which was browns, coffee themed, little bit of mixed media in there, and they're 5x7. Yeah, I had fun. So, as always, links to all the things I used will be in the description box below the video. You can just expand it, they'll all be there. And then if you keep watching, I will show you guys how I made these cards. So to start off these cards, I did the backgrounds, and I'm using some Canson XL watercolor paper, which I mean, it's not necessary. You could pretty much use just regular cardstock for this. I wasn't sure when I started if I was going to do like a bunch of water, you never know. So either or will work. But I have Canson XL watercolor paper, and I use the Picket Studios Our Finest Selection background stamp, which I've used in another like video in the past. It's all just like coffee themed, and I just put the stamp face up on my desk and I inked it up with antique linen distress oxide ink, so just kind of keeping it subtle for now. So inked it up, pressed the cardstock or the watercolor paper into it, and did that twice because when I'm able to. I like doing more than one, why not? And then I pulled out the Best Bean in Town layering stencil set. And it's got the two parts to make little coffee beans. So I've got the sort of the base of the stencil, and I'm using Vintage Photo Distress Ink first. And this is where I discovered I needed to re-ink my little mini ink pad. Because I was really having to like mush my brush into the ink pad, and that's when you can sort of tell. It's like, oh, if you're not picking up much ink, you're not laying down much ink, especially with the minis, it generally means that they need to be re-inked. So I paused the video, re-inked my little ink pad. It was great. So I only blended just parts of the stencil, not the entire thing, just kind of the upper and lower sort of corners, really, with that Vintage Photo color. And then for the detail for these little coffee beans, I'm using ground espresso, gotta use that. So ground espresso distress ink. And before anyone asks, the new distress color, the scorched timber, the final color that was just released, I do have it on order. It's on its way to me. Not sure when it's going to get here, but it will be in future videos. Promise. Very excited about it. But I probably wouldn't have grabbed it for this anyway because ground espresso. Kind of perfect for coffee theme, I was going for more sort of warm browns with this. Anyway, blended that over top of the little base stencils. Then I've got my little coffee beans on the background. And then to really get, mucky and have some fun with it, I pulled out ground espresso distress oxide spray. To get a similar look, if you're not into the sprays, things like that, you could just smush the ground espresso ink like onto the same, like I just sprayed the spray onto the backing sheet actually for the background stamp, just to keep it from getting all over my work surface. But you could smush the ink pad onto that and then spray it lightly with water. You'd get a similar look. It won't be quite as intense, but that would work too. So I did that, and I was using the little coffee rings and the little kind of heart coffee ring shape from Picket Fence's Coffee Understands Again stamp set, which I've had sitting here for a while and finally got the chance to use it because I just love it. Love the sentiments. Love these little coffee ring images, the little girl image I'm going to use. Love it. So after I stamped those pieces, like I used the spray as my kind of palette and sprayed it, so it was very messy, mucky. Love it. Dried them, and then I just flipped over that piece of acetate there and pressed that onto these backgrounds. So I got all that splattery goodness. Let that sit for a bit, and then I also added just water. Just used my distress sprayer, held it kind of higher above these panels, and only pressed the nozzle down like part way, so you get kind of the splotchy, splattery bits. Did that, picked it up with a bit of paper towel, and then dried them. And that was it. Just mucky, fun, multiple tones of brown backgrounds. So I then used the little girl, well, not little, but girl image from the Coffee Understands Again set. And I had these sort of narrower pieces of that same Canson XL watercolor paper, put it in my MISTI. And then I inked up the image with VersaFine Clair Fallen Leaves ink. So just a really deep brown ink. This is where I would have used Scorched Timber if I'd had it. However, Scorched Timber is not available in archival ink yet. There have been a lot of requests since that color was released. I'm sure Ranger is going to listen to everyone's requests for it because, yeah, just a nice, deep, dark brown. Perfection. So anyway, VersaFine Clair Fallen Leaves. Stamp that because it's not water reactive. And then I just use those exact same distress inks to watercolor the image. So I used just the antique linen for her skin. The vintage photo is what I used on her hair and the book and her little coffee mug. And then ground espresso on her shirt and her shoes. And I'm just using my little tiny Tim Holtz water brush. So I just kind of mushed the edges of those ink pads onto my work surface because it's glass. Again, the little acetate piece that I used, that would work too. Any non-porous sort of a thing will work for this. So just mushed those on there, picked up the color with my little water brush and painted it onto here. Really super simple, quick, easy. Yeah, because there's not a whole lot to color. And while the image is tall, it's not very wide. And it's also, you know, with her pants being just solid like that, simple to color, which again, love. So painted those in. And then I have the coordinating wafer dies. I don't have a link for them because I couldn't find them on the Simon Says Stamp website. I'm not sure. I could have sworn they had the coordinating wafer dies for this, but not available. This also would be a fairly easy one to fussy cut other than that little spot in between her like shoulder and the coffee cup. So I die cut them with the coordinating wafer die. And then the background, I die cut with one of the double stitched layering rectangle wafer dies. These are 5x7 a set. I've used them in multiple videos. I die cut the backgrounds with one, and then I die cut some just dark brown cardstock with one of the larger wafer dies, and they give that like nice double stitch, you know, all the way around the edges, which I love. And then I also used the Hello wafer die from that same set, and I just die cut scraps of ivory cardstock with that Hello wafer die, and I die cut multiples, and then I adhered 2 layers together. And then I cut off part of it, like basically just the main part of the H, because that's going to layer sort of over the main image, which you'll see when I put everything together. So this way I don't have to fiddle with foam tape, anything like that. It's just going to make my life a little bit easier. So, and I'm so professional. I didn't realize I was really zoomed in when I did all this. Yeah, get it together, Amy. But yeah, I just adhered the die cut pieces that were 2 layers. So the rest of the hello, the ELLO behind a full die cut, and then a little bit of the swoop I kept from the H and adhered that behind it too. So basically there's 3 layers behind everything, but like the base, the main part of the H. And then I took that vintage photo distress ink and blended that onto the bottom, or from the bottom of the die cut. Again, it gives it that shading and dimension. And then I decided to also stamp one of the sentiments from the Coffee Understands Again set onto my mixed media background. So I put the panel into my MISTI, and I just inked up the stamp with that vintage photo distress ink and stamped it. Didn't need to be perfect. It's more kind of just part of the background. And the sentiment just says, coffee doesn't ask questions. Coffee just understands. Love it. I don't know. I like silly sentiments like that. So stamp that onto those backgrounds, and then, zoomed out. Shocker, you know. Again, I joke about being like a professional because I do this as a job, but I just get so wrapped up in what I'm making, and I'm not paying attention to what I'm filming. Again, so professional. Anyway, I adhered the mixed media panel to the dark brown cardstock panel. So I just adhered them together with craft tacky glue. And then with things like this, I just stick it under, my MISTI. sometimes a stack of MISTIs depending on what I'm doing, or, you know, I'll just stick something heavy on top just to keep everything flat, let it dry. And then for my little main character, since I had the coordinating wafer die, I just die cut a couple more from, again, just those scraps of ivory cardstock and adhered them together to give a bit of dimension. And this just saved me from dealing with foam squares, because I was going to trim down little foam squares and just stick them on the back of this. And I was like, why bother when I've got the wafer die? So I adhered those together and then adhered them behind each of the main images just to, again, stack them up a little bit, gives it that little bit of dimension. So after I'd got all my little characters adhered, my backgrounds were adhered to the dark brown cardstock, and then I can adhere the little characters directly to these backgrounds. Get those adhered into place. Again, just used craft tacky glue for that, so they're just popped up a little bit. And then once those are adhered, then I can adhere those hello die cuts that I had stacked together as well. And this is where cutting out that little bit of the H comes into play, so that I can pop these right over those little characters that are also bumped up like that. And again, don't have to fiddle with foam tape, anything. Do I mind? No. But if I can avoid having to cut little pieces of foam tape, I will. So my card bases are 5x7 cards made from ivory cardstock. That's where I got the scraps from, because trimming down, I trimmed the cardstock down to 10 inches by 7 inches and then scored it at 5. So these are 5x7 note cards. And I used the Best Bean in Town stencils again, and same colors, vintage photo and ground espresso, and my little blending brush, and just kind of blended them kind of in the same way as I did on the background for the front of the card. So blended those, just went in with a kind of a lighter hand. I didn't want them to be super intense because I plan on, you know, always writing over all of this. And once I got those blended into place, I took the card bases, folded them kind of inside out so I could put them back into my MISTI, and then I was going to stamp just the sentiment and then change my mind and stamp the character as well, just cuz. So I'm going to ink her up with that antique linen distress oxide ink, stamped her onto the inside of both of these cards, and then lined up another sentiment from that same stamp set. And that one I'm going to stamp with the VersaFine Clair Fallen Leaves ink. And this sentiment just cracks me up because it says, I don't know what I would do without coffee, but I'm guessing 5 to 10. That's a prison joke if people don't understand. It makes me laugh. Anyway, after I was done that, I added just a little bit of bling. Nothing too crazy. Picket Fence has a bunch of little like gem embellishments, and I used the Sands of Time gem mix, which is available. The other one, I'm not sure if it is, but the Sands of Time one I've used in multiple videos. It's just, they're pretty. They're kind of like champagne colors, really. Like, yeah, really pretty. And then this other one it's called Moonshade or Moonshades. I'm not sure. I've had it for a while. I'm not even sure if it's still available, but just pretty little gemstones. So fiddled with those, figured out my placement, adhered them into place with just dabs of craft tacky glue. And then as my final embellishment and little addition of bling, I pulled out one of my Jelly Roll Stardust gel pens. And for those that might have been around, you know, around the block for a long time, this is the OG sparkle pen. Back in the day, this was all we had, was this. We didn't have all the fabulous brush sparkle pens, you know, like my Nouveau Aqua Shimmer that I use tons and love. We had just this. This is great for small areas, little detail. Like, I used it to trace her glasses. So her glasses are now sparkly. Like, the frames are sparkly. Love. And then I drew just little lines on her shirt, and I filled in the coffee cup. Oh, and her shoes, because they're just little tiny spots. So she's got sparkly shoes too, because who wouldn't love like sparkly glasses, sparkly shoes? Hello. So the Stardust pen, great for small detail. I won't use it for things like, say, like the Hello Sentiment. I wouldn't cover with this because it would take all day. It would take forever to, you know, color in the whole thing with a pen like this. That's where the like brush sparkle pens are amazing. But yeah, the Stardust Jelly Roll pen, always soft spot for that because I've had that since beginning and mine's actually years old and it still works. So I use that and you can see. So she's got sparkly little, you know, frames and her, you know, little stripes on her shirt and her coffee cup and her shoes. And then, yeah, I stuck with just browns. Just browns. It was hard. I was going to add, like, I wanted to add all the colors and all the things, you know? But sometimes it's fun to just, you know, not layer, but limit oneself. So that's me limiting. I had fun. So, like I mentioned in the intro, if you guys are interested, you can check out the description box below. I'll link to my blog post, all the supplies used, etc. So you can check that out below if you're interested. Thank you all so very much for taking the time to watch my video. Thumbs up, comment, subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you, and I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Bye.